Hi everyone, and welcome to the Stitch Sessions. In today's tutorial, we have a brand new pillow project for you. We are working on the Jubilee pillow, and this is our pillow for the month of July. Look at that. Isn't that cool? So we have it darker on one side and the contrasting light color on the other side. And what's really cool about this pillow project is that we use the offset granny motif to create it. You may remember we did that tutorial a few weeks back. And so a lot of times I like to have the specific tutorial in a separate video. That way you can just reference that video to create any project that you like. So for me, I use the offset granny to create this really fun and cute pillow. And so I called it the Jubilee pillow because it just, you know, the diamond shape reminded me of royalty, the Jubilee. And also Jubilee in July just sounded really, really fun. So there you have it. Now, if you're new here, my name is Karen and I love all things to do with crafting with crochet. Every year I do a crochet series, kind of like a crochet along, but instead of a blanket, I always pick a theme. So this year's theme is Pillow Talk. And at the top of every month, we work on a new crochet pillow project. So for the month of July, we are working on the Jubilee pillow. Now, this is a smaller pillow than some of the ones I've worked on in the past. Actually, I think this was the same size I used for the Easter parade pillow. And by the way, I will leave a link to the playlist of all of the pillow projects we have done so far in this year's series. If you're curious, you can check it out in the description box down below. So this is a slightly smaller one than some of the previous pillows we were working on. It is 12 inches by 12 inches. And yeah, it just makes for a nice, cute little accent, maybe a little extra throw pillow on your bed, or maybe just add it as an extra accent to a couch or a chair or something like that. But I just love kind of the simplicity of it, yet the intricacy of it. So really simple in the sense that we're just creating 16 motifs for each side. So this side has 16 and this side has 16. And then we're sewing them all together. We're going to sew up the seam, and then we've got this little hidden zipper. Look at that. And right in there. And it's hidden because of the way we crocheted that border around it. I just love that. This is actually one of my favorite closures of all the pillows. Now, I've been using a lot of these zipper closures, but I'm super happy about the way this particular one came out because it truly hides that zipper. So super, super fun. So there's not much to it. I'm going to just bring it a little closer so you can see. Actually, let me turn it on this side. Sometimes the red is not great on camera. So we sew the motifs together, and I really love how you can see the texture around each square. I think it just brings an extra sense of texture to the simple design of this pillow. What do you guys think? Are you ready to dive in? Let's do it. So I'm going to take you through the materials we're going to need for this project, and then we're just going to get going stitching up our Jubilee pillow. Let's get started. All right, let's talk about the yarn we're going to use for this project. It is Lion Brand's Heartland yarn, and it is in the color Redwood. And you guys have heard me talk about this yarn tons and tons, so I'm not going to go over it today, but I do love using the Heartland yarn. Just love the consistency of it. So that is the color I use. You can see it's pretty much almost used up here. So for the red, this is the color that I use. This is the yarn that I use. It is considered a medium weight number 4. It comes in a 142 gram skein, which contains 251 yards or 230 meters. You definitely won't need more than one skein for your pillow of this particular size. If you're gonna make one larger, obviously get another skein. So that was the yarn I used for the red. The white, unfortunately, everybody knows, I've talked about this many times. They do not carry white in this yarn. They've got so many gorgeous colors, but no white. Don't know why. So I had to find something slightly comparable, and I've got some of this left over. And this is the Snuggly Wuggly yarn by Loops and Threads. So that's what I used for my white yarn, and you definitely would only need one skein of this. And as you can see, I have some left over. So 1 skein of each is going to be plenty. And then the hook size I'm using for this project is a 5mm hook, which is also known as an H or a size 8 if you go by those labels. Make sure that you have a yarn needle on hand to weave in your ends, and this is going to be very handy for weaving in all of our motifs together to construct our pillow. Also, make sure you have a pair of scissors on hand to snip your yarn. And then you also want to make sure that you have a pillow insert. Now, this is a 12-inch by 12-inch square pillow insert. I'll leave a link to where I got this down below. I have an Amazon link to it. It is an affiliate link. I like this particular brand. I've tried ordering many different types of inserts. Why I like this one is it comes vacuum sealed, but unlike many of them that say they bounce out and they stay firm, this one actually does. So I will leave a link to that in the description box down below, because I just think that this, if you want something that stays somewhat firm but soft at the same time, this is the insert to use. And I've used this for the larger size pillows, like the 20 by 20s that sometimes you see me use. Same company on Amazon. So you're going to need that. And you're also going to need a zipper and some thread and a thread needle. It's very different than a yarn needle. See how small that eye is? It's a very thin needle so that you can sew. Now I have these 2 colors because my pillow has 2 colors to it. So I'll go over that, why I'm using these 2 different color threads when we're ready to sew on our zipper. Now my pillow is 12 inches, and this is actually a zipper that I already had lying around. So this is a 15-inch zipper. And I always get them slightly longer because I like to have a little tail that I can tuck in for my pillows. So those are all the materials you're going to need. So let's start talking about putting together our Jubilee pillow. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we are going to crochet our motifs, right? So these are the offset granny squares, and a few weeks ago you guys saw me do that already. So I'm not actually going to show you in this tutorial. What I'm going to do is I'm going to place a card right here that you can just click on immediately, and it's going to take you to that tutorial where I created this exact motif. In fact, in the tutorial I talk about how I'm making it for a project. So you're going to need to create these motifs. And here it is done with the red background and the white foreground. So one side of the panel is going to have the red as the dominant color, and then the other side of the panel is going to have the white as the dominant color. Okay, so for each side, you're going to want to create 16 of these offset squares. Okay, so, or whatever colors you choose. In my case, I chose the red and the white. So you're going to do 16 squares for each panel. Now, if you decided to do your pillow all one color for your background, then you're going to do 32 squares of the same thing. So, but if you're doing like me, one side is going to be dominant one color, one side is going to be dominant the other, then you want to do 16 squares with the red background, and then you're going to have to make 16 squares with the white background. So once you're done that, you're going to come back to this video, and then we're going to talk about sewing our motifs together. Okay, and then I'll take you through the next step after that. So you're just going to press pause, or you're going to leave here, click that little card. I'll also leave it a link for it in the description box down below. And in that tutorial, there will be a link to come back to this video so that way you don't have to go searching for it. So sew up your motifs, and then I'll meet you back here to talk about sewing up our panels. Okay, so now that you've got all of your squares, your motifs sewn up, you want to lay them all out right sides facing up. Okay, so in this case, I have my white dominant color. And a lot of the times, most of the times I did sew in my ends when I finished my squares. I didn't do it on this one, but it doesn't really matter because this is going to be the inside of your pillow. But I always like to tidy the ends up before I sew up a lot of my motifs. So you're going to place them all together like this. And you should be, if you followed the our last pillow, which was June's pillow project, the Mediterranean pillow, it's kind of the same idea. We created our motifs first, and then we came back and we laid them all out to see how we like them, okay? And making sure that all the right sides are facing up and all of that good stuff. And so what we're gonna do is we're gonna go row by row. So we're just going to go one square by one square. I'm gonna sew these two together. And then once these are sewn together, I am then going to sew this one and then this one to create a strip. Then I will move to the next row and do the same thing. So I first want to sew the individual squares to each other to form strips. So then you're going to have 4 strips, and then you're going to take each strip and you're going to sew them to each other. And then you take the next strip, you sew it, and the next strip, and you sew it. So it's a very similar method that we used in last month's pillow. Now, just to kind of show you, this one I've already sewn up with the red background here. And you're going to see that you can still see that the squared shaping of each motif stands out. And that's because when I sewed these motifs together, I used back loops and front loops. And I am going to show you that in a second here. But I just felt that it gave it a nice little extra bit of texture. Otherwise, I just felt like all the red would just get lost in a sea of red. So that is the effect it creates there. Now, the other thing that you might notice, like when I measure this, I have about 11.5. That kind of stretched out a little bit. Yeah, see up there it is 11. And remember, our pillow is 12 inches. And anytime we're creating pillows, you always want your panel to be slightly smaller than your insert because you want the insert to sit nice and snug inside your panels. So if you take a measurement and you think, oh no, I've made it too small, nope, you did it absolutely correctly. So let's talk about sewing our motifs together. And so let's just take these first 2 here. And the first thing you want to do once you've decided you found your right sides, you're going to place them facing each other. Okay. And this way we can see that? We can see where the stitches lie. And then we are going to take our dominant color here. So I'm going to use the white. I'm going to take the white. And I'm just going to cut a little strip here, just like that. I always like to do it a little bit longer. And then I'm going to take my yarn needle. And by the way, those of you that have seen me do this before, you can just fast forward to the 2 panels portion of this video. And I will make sure to leave timestamps in the description box down below. But I like to make sure that those of you that are a little newer, that you get a little bit more step-by-step breakdown. So what I want to do is I always like to start in the corner. And I like to find that very first stitch here. And I'm going to pick up this back loop here. So sorry, this is the front loop, meaning this is the loop that's closest to me. Yeah. And then I'm going to go to the other panel, and right in that chain right there, I'm going to pick up the loop that's furthest away from me. So I have the front loops of this panel and the back loops of that panel. I'm going to bring it through, and I'm actually going to knot it there. And that'll secure that end there. Whoops, let me just take that out for a second. I like to knot it a couple of times. And we're going to use the mattress stitch, which you've seen me use a few times in these pillow projects. So we're going to start by finding the next stitch, which is right there, and I'm going to pick up that back loop. Okay. Sorry guys, I hope this camera is focusing properly. I'm going to pick up the back loop, and now I'm going to come here and I'm going to pick up the front loop. Okay, and then I just pull it through. That little tail we can weave in afterwards. Then I go into the next stitch and I find the front loop and I find the corresponding back loop right there. And that's it. So I go forward and then I go from the back into the front. Oops, did I catch that whole loop? Yes, I did. Okay, and then I go from the front to the back, and that's our typical mattress stitch. So you're going to keep doing that, making sure that you will line up all of the stitches. Every once in a while, you might have 2 stitches and there's 1 here. You can just loop a second time into this next stitch and go back into the original same stitch. So it's not the end of the world if you have 1 stitch off. It happens a lot, actually. So I'm going to keep weaving this one in, and hopefully my stitches are going to be perfectly equal. And then I'll come back and show you how I finish off each little motif I sew. Okay, now this one actually worked out pretty bang on. So on each side, I have 9 stitches. So I just want to make sure I line them up nicely. Plus I have the chain 1s on each end. And so technically you're going to whip into 11 spots, right? So now sometimes this is where the slip stitch happened. That's why every once in a while you might notice that you actually have an extra stitch or you're missing 1 stitch less. So you're just going to insert your hook anywhere that you see is comfortable. Right there. And then I'm going to go into that stitch there and we are done. Now, if I had an extra stitch on this side, for example, I'd go in through that stitch, but then I just simply come back in through the same stitch over here. So just in case that happens, you're a-okay. All right. So now when you turn it over, yeah, looks pretty decent. It is normal to have these little dips and valleys here, but once we sew our strips together, that will disappear. Now I want you to see how these ridges are forming, and that's because we sewed our motif into the back and the front loops. Pretty cool, huh? Okay, so once you get to the end, then you're just gonna go in another time and you're going to knot it. So I like to go back in and then place tail there, and there we go. Created a knot. Okay. So our first 2 motifs are sewn together, and luckily they worked out nice and even. So then the next thing you're going to do is take the next motif, right side facing up. You will place right sides facing together. Whoops, this one has all these tails here. And then you're going to do the exact same thing. You're going to sew up the side. Then you're going to take this one, right side facing, sew up that side. So just like I explained earlier. And if it's easier for you, like a lot of these, like I said, I did sew the tails in, just so that they're out of your way. So you want to end up having 4 strips at the end of this. So it'll take you a little while, but this is great. You can watch some shows on Netflix and whip this together in no time. So once you have your rows, for those of you that are a little newer, I'll just pop back on and then just go over kind of how we're going to sew it strip by strip. The method is exactly the same. Okay, so I'll meet you back here in a little bit. Okay, so I've sewn up my strips here, as you can see, and then I've been sewing the strips together. So I just wanted to, again, for you little bit beginners, this is what would happen next after you sew the 4 together. You're then going to go strip by strip, and you're going to do the same thing down the way here. Okay, so you're going to do that, and then we're going to talk about crocheting a little border around this whole panel so that you have a little bit more of a uniform edge here. Okay, so go ahead, finish that up, and then we're going to talk about creating that border. Okay, so I have now sewn up all of my motifs. You can see on the back here, I've got lots of little tails I've woven in. Some of them I've trimmed down. And so it is normal. See how there's a little bit of kind of wonkiness around the edges. Anytime you're sewing motifs together, especially those of you that have done a lot of like granny square blankets and things like that, you always know it never goes exactly perfectly. So this is where a border comes into play. Okay, so you can see here on this panel how the border just helps to give it a little bit of a straighter edge there. So that's what we're going to do next. And we'll be ready to sew our 2 panels together very soon. So I'm going to take my white here and place a slip knot on my hook. And I like to start in a corner. So I'm going to pick up this corner here. And just in that little chain space right there, I'm going to insert my hook and slip stitch to join my yarn. Just like that. Okay, and it's going to be nice and simple. We're going to chain 1. And then we're going to go back into that space and we're going to place a half double crochet stitch. Just like that. Then we're going to chain 2 for our corner. And we're going to go back into that space and place another half double crochet. Just like that. And that forms our corner. And then what we're going to do is we're going to place 1 half double crochet into each stitch across. Make sure never to miss that very first stitch there. So, and we're going to work right into the full stitch. So you yarn over as usual, insert, and half double crochet. So nice and easy. And so you're just going to keep going across here, and I'm going to take you through kind of working over a seam, because what you want to do is make sure that you generally have the same number of stitches on each side. So just like when we were sewing the motifs, this will help when we are sewing our panels together. So we're coming up to this little join area here. So basically I have a corner and then the seam and a corner. So I'm going to go into the corner and I'm going to half double crochet, and then I'm going to just find a spot somewhere in the center of this seam, picking up a couple of loops, and I'm going to half double crochet, and then I'm going to go into the corner here and I'm going to half double crochet. So you're basically just placing 1 stitch nice and even. Okay, I like how that looks. And then you're going to keep going. Now, some of these seams might be a little bulky, so you are going to have to eyeball this a little bit. So I'm just going to go a little further out. So see, sometimes you're just going to see a little wee bit of a dip, and that's okay. But generally speaking, I like how that's looking. So I'm going to continue on down the way here. Now, just to keep a general even number of stitches, basically with each square, we know we have 11 stitches that we can fit on each square. So remember, because it's 9 stitches and then the chain 1s, we are working into those corners, yeah? So 11 stitches times 4 squares means we're going to be able to have 44 stitches on one side. So if 44 stitches is your number, you want to make sure that 44 stitches is the same on all sides going all the way around, okay? And that way, when we're sewing our 2 panels together, each stitch is going to match up nicely. So just make sure that that happens there. Now I'm going to go ahead and finish this one side. And those of you that are a little newer, I'm going to meet up with you in this corner here just to take you around the bend there. Okay, so I've come up to the end here. And by the way, I also forgot to mention when I talked about the 11 stitches per side, you may also have a stitch like I did earlier in the seams here. So you may have actually 47 stitches. You may actually have something like 38 stitches, because if you sewed your sides here really tight, placing a stitch in the seam might create some bunching. So it will vary. Now it so happens that I ended up having 44 exactly, because at some point a couple of these seams were just too bunched in, so I skipped over them. So my count is 44, but yours might deviate a little bit, so don't panic. The most important thing is Look at it. Does it look nice and even? And whatever number it is, just make sure it's the same on all 4 sides. Remember, we're going to place it on a pillow. It's going to stretch nicely and nobody's going to notice it. Okay, we're in the corner. And as always, I want to come around the bend here. So I'm going to place 1 half double crochet. Then I'm going to chain 2. And then 1 half double crochet, just like that. Okay, so that was in the corner, that was my 44th stitch. Then I chained 2, and now this stitch is the first stitch of the next side. So I know those of you that know your way around crochet, this is super easy peasy for you. And I always like to bring along our newer crochet friends and make sure that it all makes sense. So see, now you have a really nice defined corner. All right, guys, so that is what you're gonna do just to finish off the look of your panel. So nice. So you're gonna go around the bend, do your corner, long side here, do your corner, finish off. Then you're gonna slip stitch to join. So see how we already created a corner? Slip stitch to join into that very first half double crochet. Snip your yarn, and then we'll be ready to sew our 2 panels together. Okay, so I have finished my border. So now you've got something that looks like this, and you can see it's really sitting nicely in a grid now. And so now we have our 2 panels and we're ready to put them together. So what we want to do is we want to place them wrong sides facing each other. Okay, so I'm just going to turn over the red. And because I've got a little tail here, I want to keep that at the bottom. And there's a tail here. And so I'm going to place this. So this is the wrong side and this is the wrong side. I'm going to place them one on top of the other. And so I have decided that I want this side to be my zipper side. So that way, when we crochet over this, we're going to hide that tail in there. So we are going to use the single crochet method to sew our panel together. So what we want to do is, I want to make sure it's nicely aligned. I'm going to take my hook. So like we did with the other pillow project, I always like to come a few stitches in before we leave that opening for the zipper, because you always want to have a little area for the zipper ends to tuck under. For me, I find 3 stitches is plenty, depending on the size of the pillow. Now this is a smaller pillow. Some of you might want to go in 4 stitches or even 5 stitches, but I find 3 stitches is pretty decent for me. So I'm going to count 1, 2, and 3. Now that's not counting that chain 1 space. I'm going to insert my hook into that one. Then I'm going to go into the back panel and do the same thing. So we have 1, 2, and 3. Insert there. Then I'm going to bring in my yarn. Now I am going to stitch up with the white. Okay. And you'll see why in a little bit. And instead of putting the slip knot, I'm actually just going to feed it through. And with the tail there, I'm then going to chain 1. And I like doing that for these kinds of projects because that way there isn't as much bulk there with the slip knot. Then I can either work over that tail or just tuck that in. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back into that same spot through both panels, just like that. And I'm going to single crochet. And that is now attached, okay? So I'm gonna go in through the front panel and I'm gonna match up the stitches in through the back panel and I'm gonna single crochet, and that's what I'm gonna do into every single stitch all the way around, always matching up the front to the back, okay? And now I have the corner and I have the corner here. In the corners, we're just gonna do what we did in the last round. We're going to insert into the corner, just working over that tail there. We're going to single crochet. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to place 2 single crochets in these corners, just because we have a little bit of a thicker fabric we've created. And then we're going to chain 2. And we're going to go back into that corner space and place 2 single crochets. Just like that. See, now it's giving you a nice defined corner. So our corners will always have 2 single crochets, chain 2, 2 single crochets. And then I continue on. Make sure not to miss that first stitch right there. So I insert and then I match it up. I know the red is tricky to see. I match it up with the panel in the back and I single crochet. And that's it, that's all. Nice and straightforward. And this is going to sew up your 2 panels really nicely. Okay, so just want to do a few there so you can see. Look at how nice and defined that edge is. All right, guys. So this is where I leave you to do it all the way to the end. You know what to do in your corners. You're going to go all the way around. Once you come out of this corner, you're going to go 3 more stitches in, and then I'm going to meet up with you there. Okay, so I have finished sewing my panels together. So now I've got a little opening here. So this is what it looks like from the back. So this is the back side of those single crochet stitches. And I like how it just creates a nice little contrast here. And then this is the other side with all the white. So you can see the corners are nicely pronounced there. And so I'm going to do the same thing here, which we did in our, actually both the Mediterranean pillow as well as the pinwheel pillow. So we want to unify the opening here, and so what I'm going to do is I'm now going to continue along this side here, and I'm going to just continue with my single crochets. I just finished with this stitch here, and then I'm just going to continue with only going in to 1 panel. And just continuing along. This will give us a little bit more fabric, I guess we'll say, to work through when we are sewing in our zipper. Okay, so you're just going to do that all the way around, 1 single crochet to every single stitch. And when you get to here, you are going to single crochet into that stitch, and then you just skip over and go into the very next stitch over here. So the white basically is going to be our opening. Originally, I was going to do the white side. I was going to remain white, and then I was going to come back in with the red. But because we're actually going to do an additional border round after this, it just makes sense to continue with the white all the way around. And then for round number 2 of our border, you will see what we're happening. So I'm calling this the border, like this first round is what we use to seam up our panels, and it created an additional border. We're going to come back in a moment and do a second border, a full border around the whole pillow. So for now, you're going to go all the way around, and then once you come to the end of this last stitch, you're just going to slip stitch into this first stitch we did right here. You're going to slip stitch into there. And then you're going to weave in your end. And at that point, I'm going to meet up with you. We're going to come back and do 1 more little finishing round before we talk about sewing on our zipper. Actually, I just wanted to come on to retract something I said earlier. I said you're going to, once you get to this last one, you're going to skip over to the next stitch on the other side. But actually what I'd like to do to solidify this little edge here, you're going to go into that stitch and you are going to slip stitch. Whoops. I need to catch both of those loops there. There we go. So you're going to slip stitch and then continue on into the next stitch on the other side. And that's really just going to anchor everything and keep it all nicely attached. See that? So that's what you want to do. So when you come to the other side here, which I did mention earlier, make sure to slip stitch right into that stitch where we began going around. Okay, so just a little something in case you skipped over that and then thought, because I skipped over it and I'm like, I didn't really like how it was looking. It just looked a bit kind of disconnected here. So here now it really looks like it's all one piece. So now I'm just going to finish my opening. Okay, so I have finished the opening. So now it just creates this nice little accent there. I've got that tail. And so now I've got a little bit more structure to my opening. Okay, we are going to add one more round, or I guess this would be the official border since this was used to actually just sew the panels together. So this is where I'm going to bring back my red yarn, and I hope that I have enough left over because this is basically what I have left. I think I should. And here is what we're going to do. So we have been basically focusing on the white side, we'll call it. So I'm actually going to turn it over. And so we are now going to crochet the next round with this side facing up. So see how here we have the backs of the stitches showing. So what we're going to do is by crocheting with this side now considered the right side, this is going to blend in quite nicely. A nice little design there. So I'm going to bring in my red yarn and I'm going to do the same thing again. I am going to start again in the same spot where I ended. So that tail's right there. And actually, I'm going to work over that tail. So I am going to insert my hook right about there. And I'm just going to pull this yarn through, just like that. Okay. And then I'm going to go back into that same stitch and I'm going to single crochet. Okay. And so what we're going to do for this round is we're going to chain one and single crochet into the next stitch. So just again, I'm going to work over those tails. So every single stitch is going to get a single crochet, but I am going to chain one in between each single crochet. So now you just have regular stitches that you're going to work into, chain one, work into the next single crochet and chain one. And when I come up to the corner, oh no, I have one more stitch there. Single crochet, chain one. And now when I go into the corner, I'm going to single crochet. Whoops. I'm actually going to single crochet once. I'm trying to get those tails out of the way. And then I'm going to chain two. So remember in the corners, we always want to chain two to come around the bend there. And then I'm going to go right back into that chain one space and single crochet. So for the final round here, we are only single crocheting once into the corner and a chain two. So see how that creates that really lovely contrast? And then the back of that white round just kind of gives it a little pretty zigzag stitch. Yeah. So then I continue on. So now I'm out of the corner. I'm going to chain one. And I'm just going to weave those in at the end. So I'm going to go into that stitch, chain one, single crochet, chain one. And that's it. That's what you're going to do all the way around to just finish off our pillow. So this is what it looks like from this side. Isn't that cool? How it has the red and then the white creates a little bit of an accent. And when you turn it over on this side, the red also creates a simple accent on the other side. Just have to, actually, you know what? I'm just going to cut off this tail. Just like that. I'll push that in there. And that'll just give it a nice, sweet little accent. So that's what you want to do. You want to go all the way around, all the way around, all the way around. And when you come to your opening, we are going to do the same thing around the opening as well, okay? But what I'll do is I'll meet up with you when we get to the opening just to kind of reinforce for any of you that are a little bit unsure. Okay, look at how cute that looks. So I've come all the way around. And now we're going to do the opening end. So I just wanted to show you, you're just going to continue on as usual. So I've just done my chain one. See, that's the first stitch coming around the bend. So I'm just going to go into that stitch, single crochet, chain one. And that is the exact same thing I'm going to do all the way around the opening. Okay, so single crochet, chain one. Okay, so we're looking to keep this nice and uniform, and then we will be just about ready to put on the last touch. So just finish up your opening and then snip your yarn, weave in your end, and I will meet you back here shortly. Okay, so I have completed the second border round. And what I love about it is that it looks the same. So it's all uniform on this side. And then when you turn it over, it's all uniform on that side. So essentially your zipper is going to get hidden in this little teeny tiny little ruffle there. So I have already created a tutorial on how to, or how I like to hand sew a zipper on my crochet projects. There is a link for it in the description box down below. And I'm also going to put it up in the cards there so you can just click on it right away. So I'm going to let you go to that video. However, before you do that, I want to show you, because we made this little ruffle here, I did that so that the zipper actually, and actually if I had thought about this sooner, I would have gone out and bought an invisible zipper. It's a much thinner profile. But again, I have this one lying around, so I just wanted to use this one. So that way the zipper will sit in here and the ruffle bit kind of hides it. Yeah. So I'm just going to quickly show you how I pin it in place and for this particular purpose. And then I will set you guys loose on that regular, on that tutorial where I actually take you step by step. Now, I have safety pins here. In the past, I've used straight pins, and I always find, especially for zipper projects, I prick myself all the time. So what I always like to do is I like to start on this end because I want to see where this little, pull is going to end up being nestled into. So the idea is I'm just going to fold this little flap down, and I want to hide it. Okay. Now the idea is that I want to sew it into where we did that row of white. So I don't want to sew it into the red. Okay. So I'm going to just hold it down there, and I'm going to take a safety pin. And once I like where it is, and I do this working from the right side, I make sure to pin it down. So I'm just going to pin it, making sure. And I want to make sure I only catch one side. There we go. Just like that. This way I can work with it and remove the pins and not worry about being pricked. Okay, and then when I look on this side, now the pin here, the safety pin, that's really close to the edge. I would rather have this edge right over here. So actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this out, and I'm going to look at it from the wrong side, which is what I should have done at the beginning. Every pillow project is different, I find. Even though I've done these zippers before, it seems there's always a new little nuance. So I'm tucking that in there. And I want to make sure that this edge, covers that white part. So I want to then take my pin and make sure that it catches. Yeah, there you go. See how it's coming out on the white side there. And then I secure it in place. And I would do that all the way down. Initially, I do it keeping the zipper closed. So on the outside, you can see that it stays nicely aligned. And it's not like the ruffle comes up a lot. It just comes up enough so that when the other side, so if I tuck that under, when the other side comes through, like you might see that. But really, when the pillow's sitting like that, you don't want to initially be able to see the zipper. Those of you that are sewists and are very experienced with this, you will most definitely, I'm sure, run out and get an invisible zipper, okay? And then I would open it, and then I would do the same thing on the other side and then hand sew the zipper. So that will be the last, well, the second last job to do on this project. The last job will be to insert, to place the insert inside the pillow. So the card is going to be placed right up here. So click on that on your screen right now. And that's going to take you to the zipper tutorial. Takes you step by step on how I hand sew a zipper. Then once you're done there, you're going to come back over and I'm going to show you the final reveal. And by the way, on that zipper tutorial, I also have put a link to the the pillow playlist. So that way you don't have to go searching for this video again. You can just search in the description box of that zipper tutorial, and you'll find the pillow playlist, and in that playlist you'll come back to the Jubilee pillow. So I'm going to sew my zipper on, and then we'll be back together shortly for the final reveal. And my zipper is in, and do you see how it sits nicely inside that little mini ruffle? It practically disappears. Look at that. And here is our Jubilee pillow. Look at how fun that looks. And I love how you can make it really bold and kind of dominant on one side, and then on the other side is just super light and bright. And I love how we worked out the accent borders. So the red really gives it some nice structure and shape around the outside. But then when it's on the red side, you can still see that faint white border coming around. And I just love how that came out. What do you guys think? Super fun, huh? And this pillow, I love the fact that look at how firm it is. And it's just bringing it to life. So the Jubilee pillow, was it easier than you thought it was going to be? Don't you just love how those diamond shapes just come out? Now, if you have any questions, let me know. Leave them for me in the comment box down below. Or leave me comments. Let me know what your experience was creating the Jubilee pillow. I know some of you like to email me directly, so feel free to do so. You can always email me at info@crochetcrafty.com. And don't forget, as always, come visit me on the website, crochetcrafty.com. Lots of crochet goodies for you, written patterns, sizing charts, lots of photos of previous projects. So come and visit me there. Also, tag me anytime you create one of my designs. I'm on Facebook and Instagram at The Stitch Sessions, so make sure to come over and say hello to me there. If you like this type of tutorial, make sure to give me a thumbs up. Let me know that I'm on the right track with the types of projects that you want to continue seeing. So this is part of our Pillow Talk crochet series for 2023, and there are more pillow projects coming your way. And if you are new here and you enjoyed this tutorial, I invite you to press that subscribe button. Come and join the Stitch Sessions family. Make sure to press that notification bell as well, and you'll be notified every time I upload a new video tutorial, which is every Wednesday morning. All right, my crochet friends, that's all for today. I hope you have a wonderful day. Happy crocheting as always, and make sure to take very good care of yourselves. And I will see you in next week's session. Bye-bye.